Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Myths, Mysteries, and Majesty. For this season, we plan to pre-record a few episodes because we need vacation. So we need to take a break a little bit from work, from podcasts, both when it comes to our physical and mental rest, even though we love podcasts and the topics we're dealing with, all the biblical theology, supernatural stuff, paranormal eyewitness accounts, different mysteries, different mythologies. We love all of that, but we need to take a break. So we're working 24 hours a day almost in this, short season before vacation so that you guys will still have material provided while we are gone. But we also have some news when it comes to the podcast. Namely, Shaun and I came to agreement to call this segment of the podcast Ear Encounters with Shaun and Nick. And that's why I'm excited about this news. But even though it's a newly formed segment, it's actually not that new because since January, Shaun and I have been already we already did a few of these episodes, so this will be episode number 4 when it comes to segment. We just didn't have the name of the segment. So Shaun, welcome back. How do you feel about this official name of the segment? Is it exciting?
It's very exciting, and yeah, I'm just privileged and blessed to get to work with you on this ministry. I've seen it go from just a few of us trying to figure out what's the best technology to buy in order to do all the podcasting to now I get to be an official part of the team, and that's just such a blessing.
Thank you, brother. I feel the same. And yeah, just before we dive into the material for tonight, I just want to invite everyone, since we don't make any profit on the channel, please continue liking, subscribing, sharing video clips. It doesn't cost you anything, and it means a lot to us. So that hopefully, social media such as YouTube will start promoting hopefully this channel more and more. And for tonight, we have prepared some of the more creepy, eerie, and mysterious stories for you tonight. They're all coming from public domain. And I can go first when it comes to tonight. We don't have names of the stories. We didn't change much of the material except when there are cuss words. So I tried to edit a lot of those things. But when it comes to names, events, specific details such as time or location, I left everything to be as possible as the original authors wrote. So let's start when it comes to the first story. And again, we'll be dissecting all of these stories when it comes to the biblical and Christian worldview. Something invited itself into my friend's house. So already the first sentence doesn't sound promising. I mean, it's one of those stories like, give me a cup of coffee, give me a blanket, give me a cold night, and I'm just gonna read this, and enjoy my quietness at home. But when it comes to this person who is experiencing this, it doesn't sound promising. So something invited itself into my friend's home. When I was younger, I had a next door neighbor named Lexi, and she was my best friend. Our parents would go on trips on motorcycles with each other, and we would camp out at one of our houses until they came back. It was normal for us. We never had any paranormal events prior to this specific night. We were sitting in bedroom, talking and doing what we normally did. We saw a bright light through her window, followed with the sound of motorcycles pulling onto the gravel driveway. We instantly think, okay, our parents forgot something. But before we could even get up to leave the bedroom, we heard a knocks and a soft woman's voice say, "Hello?" The front door opened. Okay, this is the second non-promising thing in the story, Sean. So the front door opened. Like, how did the front door open? Like, the kids didn't open. Doesn't sound good.
No.
This was a familiar sound because the door scraped against the hardwood flooring. Okay, so even though the kids were in another room, just by hearing the sound, they recognizing like someone is about to come in.
Well,
We
and it scraped against the hardwood flooring, which meant that there was resistance because of the friction against the floor. This wasn't just the wind blowing the door open.
Yeah. So imagine the atmosphere and the tension with two girls.
Yeah.
Not promising.
No.
The front door opened. This was a familiar sound because the door scraped against the hardwood floor. Okay. We panicked thinking there was an intruder at this point because this woman didn't sound like our family. We have very Texan voices. So this is like me opening someone's door in Texas and speaking with my accent. They're like, who the heck are you? Like, who opened the door for you? Okay. We scouted the house, scared out of our minds. I would be the same, just to be honest. Just to find the front door wide open and nobody in the driveway. Okay, this is another detail in this mysterious story. Nobody was in the house. We finally felt better. We walked back into her bedroom, but before she went to enter, she collapsed onto the floor and started sobbing. I didn't know what was happening. I was scared. And she told me something as tall as the door frame was standing in her parents' room.
Wow.
Shaun, imagine you're a kid or a teenager, and it's just you and your friend, and something as tall as the door frame, invisible to you, but your friend is able to say. It reminds me of those stories when animals can see or feel or smell something, but for us humans, like, you know what? Like, there's nothing. Just be calm, be quiet. Like, nothing's happening. Just,
Right.
you're imagining. But imagine your friend is freaking out, having a nervous breakdown because she or he can see something and you can't. Like,
Yeah.
how would you feel in this scenario?
Yeah, I would feel absolutely helpless because I don't know what it is that I don't know what it is. I don't know where it is, but it was frightening enough that she collapsed on the ground sobbing. So this isn't something that's just a slight threat, right? This is like code red. Um, this thing could kill us.
Yeah, it's almost like a form of a predator. Like, how do you find the invisible enemy? Like,
Right.
you don't have that technology, you don't have that ability. Not to even mention you're a kid. But even if you're an adult, still, what can you do? You cannot throw a knife or axe or take your shotgun and try to shoot at this invisible enemy. So we're dealing with something supernatural. Okay. And again, this entity was as tall as the door frame. So I'm 6 foot, and this is way taller than me. Okay. So,
Yeah.
and
Between
imagine the
6
size of that entity versus kids. So I would say this entity could be even twice bigger as those kids.
mm-hmm.
After our parents returned, her family continued to have paranormal activity in their house. They moved out. And I don't blame them. If this thing happens, and I mean, we don't have any context, was this family religious or not? We don't know if this entity eventually left. I mean, the paranormal activity continued, but at this point, at this day, like, we don't know if the entity left and it didn't bother the kids. We don't know if it kept coming back the same entity, or maybe like in the case of Legion, if there were like multiple demonic entities, if the family was religious or not, like I said, or maybe if they call for help for a priest or a pastor to come and pray or rebuke these entities. We don't know much. We only have this short story, and we got a reply to this story, just very few sentences, that said, several years ago on a New Year's Eve, me and my wife and brother and a bunch of her friends rented a cabin. So this was New Year's Eve. A very tall person walked into the cabin. This would freak me out. You're in the middle of nowhere, probably just nature, like nothing else except animals outside and few guys and ladies in the cabin. And a very tall person walks into the cabin and looks at me and walks into a bedroom and vanishes. I understand now why this person replied to the first person story, because it has a lot of similarities. It's a tall entity and it just disappears into the thin air. So this, Shaun, unless I'm wrong, this is like just another case, like so many shapeshifters and skinwalkers that we covered already on the podcast, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, something that just walks. I mean, it almost makes me think Portal, because they walked through they walked into a bedroom, so they walked through a threshold and disappeared.
Yeah, yeah. And there is something about thresholds that some they're not scholars, but they're like Christian researchers like Derek Gilbert, they when they read certain portions of the Old Testament, they think that thresholds were almost like portals for entities, maybe even angelic entities, not just demonic entities. And there's also something so mysterious and almost sacred to my culture, but not when it comes to the Christian part of my culture. When it comes to my pagan, hidden part of my culture, which is coming from Eastern Europe. So there's something about thresholds. I cannot mystify it more. I don't know. I'm just saying that there could be something when it comes to this. And this reminds me of the stories of people seeing entities like vampires. Like they cannot step that threshold unless you not just open the door, but unless you invite them. So there could be something like but in this case, in the first story with these two girls, the entity that looked like a woman opened the door and was able to come inside without being invited. So we don't know what these girls or the family was practicing. Were they like playing with Ouija board, with maybe summoning spirits? I did summoning spirits when I was a kid with my sister and friends, because most kids did that. We don't have Ouija board, but we had some of those things. So there's always that what if, but a lot of details are not given to us. We can only speculate. Um, so again, a very tall person walks into the cabin and looks at me, and then walks into a bedroom and just boom vanishes. I saw them. My brother saw them the next day. None of the girls could see them though. Scared the out of us both. It stood at the other end of the kitchen table, like 7 foot. Wow. So this would be like me and just this this taller than me. So yeah, it will look scary, especially in the nighttime. And then the most hilarious comment I saw, I was laughing. I was both scared and laughing when I was reading this story the other night. It looked like Adrian Brody, so the famous Hollywood actor. I was just imagining him. I'm like, what's so scary about him? But he has unique face. So the way the person described this demonic entity that looks like a Hollywood actor was, again, not just scary, but it was also funny when I was reading this.
Yeah.
You can continue, but if you want to add something on this story, you're more than welcome.
Well, just one thing that I would say is biblically, I don't know about culturally, like you said, I don't know what their culture necessarily was or what they inherited, but biblically, if we're seeing something that's over 6 feet tall, it's something nefarious. Probably has either lines going back to Nephilim, giants, something like that. But it's always associated with something that's really not good. And even if it is something positive, like say the angel of the Lord, it may not be good for you. Like I'm thinking Balaam and his donkey. All right. I've had a few supernatural experiences, but the one I usually go to is when I worked in a supermarket. I grew up in a farm town, and the only place to get groceries besides the grossly overpriced Shopko on the edge of town was the family owned supermarket, Robertson's. The Robertson family was very active in the community, but also had a reputation uh, from miserly to straight up evil, depending on who you asked. If you asked me and the rest of the bag boys, Robertson's had a dark aura around it. Many features contributed, like the vaulted ceilings in the back rooms, the creaking floors in the upstairs offices, and the door behind hidden behind a pile of old shelves that seems to lead under the loading dock. The worst was the patriarch of the Robertsons, Blaine. He was too old to handle the business decisions, but he was too stubborn to let his toupee-toting son take it out of his hands. So he spent his day shuffling around the floor, antagonizing the bag boys at every turn. He chastised us for clocking in more than 1 minute early. He chastised us for standing at the clock with a minute left on our shift. He chastised us for our laziness the second we weren't actively moving items. I always joked that Blaine was a vampire. He just refuses to die. Why else is there never a call over the intercom for kids who lost their parents? One night, my suspicions were reinforced. Blaine had showed up about 9 to take care of some office work upstairs. With all of our closing duties done, my partner for the night and I lollygagged in the stockroom right at the foot of the office stairs. When 10 rolled around, It was time to close. I figured I'd let Blaine know we were locking up. I started up the stairs and suddenly noticed it was dark. I got to the top and looked around. Not a single light in the offices was on. We had stood at the bottom of the stairs the whole time, and Blaine hadn't passed us. Even when Blaine isn't looming like Nosferatu, strange things happen upstairs. The exposed water pipes leading upstairs twang like someone hit them with a hammer. Footsteps on the creaky floor echo through the whole back room. All of this happens when the offices are pitch black as we stand next to the stairs. One night, my partner and I got freaked out by the noises from the offices and decided to spend the remainder of the shift lapping the store. But as we walked perpendicular to the aisles, a can of green beans halfway down the vegetable aisle suddenly fell off the shelf. We put it back in place and started walking again. 2 aisles down, another can fell off. This time, as I put it back in place, a can 15 feet down the aisle flew off the shelf. We left that one sitting and huddled around the cash registers for the rest of the shift.
Okay, let me pause. Yeah. I would try to imagine myself. Yeah, I would be braver if I would have a company with me. But regardless, spotting something like this in the basement or in a storage room late at night, even with lights on, I don't care. Just seeing cans like floating around and throwing to the ground, seemingly randomly, but I don't think it's randomly from shelf to shelf. That's a sign that you may have a poltergeist, a ghost, a demon, something vengeful, something that is not so friendly, because at least you can see that it's trying to scare you.
Yeah.
This is when I mean, I don't accept every eyewitness report and every story. So, like, like the Bible does says the Lord, right? I don't. I try to have this healthy skepticism. But in this case, if I was already 3 times happening, and like there's no open window where the wind is blowing, there's no one like playing pranks with me. Everything seems to be okay with the shelf. If there's nothing that would logically give me this natural cause of why is this happening, I will start praying. Honestly, like this will be when I would need protection, because it's not random, and it's not. You can say one time is a coincidence or just things happen, but 3 times to happen in that short time span, something is about to happen. Maybe not. Maybe it's just trying to scare you. But this is time for you, as the person of faith, to start calling upon the name of the Lord to protect you, to bless you, and even because we have authority in Jesus to resist these demonic entities, to leave us alone. Um, I don't know if there's something that you would add on this, but this is how I would feel, because this is one of those situations where you will start getting your goosebumps.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and the scariest part about this is that it was one can at a time. Had it been a bunch of cans, you could have wrote it off as an earthquake or a subway, or maybe the shelf was just was starting to give from the weight of the cans. But one can at a time, and then they fall and hit the ground, and I think they picked up 2 or 3 cans, and then one flew off the shelf. So this, I'm kind of imagining, almost like a kid going around just kind of pushing a can over, and then turning and looking at you, and just for spite, grabbing one and throwing it across the store. And of course, if it was just a little kid, that would be different. That would just be mischievous. But we know that there is no neutrality in the spirit world. You're either with God or you're on the other side. And so, I agree with you completely. This is the time that I would start praying and start wrestling against powers and principalities. Let's see. To top it off, though, a bag boy requested to be taken off night shifts after he had an experience in the break room. The break room has 2 small bathrooms, male and female. He was taking his dinner break when he heard a baby crying from the women's bathroom. He had been in there for 5 minutes already and hadn't seen anyone come in, much less with a baby. He endured the crying for 5 more minutes, but he got concerned and knocked on the door. Repeated knocks and questions got nothing back except for non-stop bawling. He was finally convinced something had happened to the mother and cracked the door open. The room was dark and empty.
Wow, I just want to say one thing. When I was preparing this material and reading online and, just deleting and not including a lot of material I was finding, I read several stories and some of them I included, some of them I did not because they seem so similar. But some of them were I encountered where there was like sort of a, I don't know if I have a proper name for that, but there were different stories where a child would be would die in certain, different locations, and the way that the ghost activity would portray itself, it would seem like a little boy, like you said, like it looked like there was a kid, just knocking down the cans out of fun because it was just having fun. So in some of these stories that I was reading, again, I didn't implement every of these stories for our material, but in some of the stories, people didn't get scared, or they got a little bit scared, and then they saw that these entities didn't wish them harm, didn't want to hurt them. They're just playful, or in a way, they sound so weird, but kind of lonely. They just wanted to do something so people can pay attention to them. Maybe, hey, I still exist. Hey, this find out story of me. I died here because of ABCD. Like bad thing happened to me. So I read some of the stories where like even though I know you just said there's no neutrality in the spirit world, but like in some of these stories that I was reading, not every ghost, not every spiritual entity was trying to hurt or scare people. Sometimes it was just like being playful and like, I'm here, you can also come here. I'm just paying, I just want to give you I just want you to pay attention that I exist. And this would usually cause people later to find out what was happening in this story. In this location there was a kid. Usually it will be a tragedy, and sometimes this entity would act in a malicious way, but sometimes it would just like yeah, you can be here, cool, but I'll let you know, I as a ghost or the spirit, I'm also here. It wouldn't scare them away, it wouldn't hurt them. And that left me puzzled. I mean, I would be glad that people didn't get hurt in stories that I was reading like this. And again, these were like several stories, and I'm like, well, what was then the point if the spirit or the ghost of this child, or sometimes children, if it wouldn't be malicious, and if it didn't live to go with God, then what was their purpose of being in a certain location, let's say an old building or school? Sometimes it would be school, and like just, and people will go there for fun, adults, and they would encounter this and like, okay, this ghost doesn't wish me bad. It just wants me to learn about their life and their tragedy. So I'm thinking, could it be that something, if this is true, and again we're speculating, could it be that if this ghost didn't go to the Lord yet, and God knows why, that this ghost maybe seeks uh not vengeance, but some sort of justice, like, hey, I want someone to pay attention, to investigate, maybe write about my story so I can have some sort of peace when it comes to my name and when it comes to my life while I was still alive, so then I can have some sort of peace and justification, sort of. I'm just thinking out loud. Does that make sense?
Could it be possible? Yeah, I'm not one that would like write off the idea that there could be ghosts, but we always have to keep in mind that they're smarter than us, these demonic powers, and they could be playing the long game. Like for instance, um the the I want to use my words carefully. uh the deception that a child can decide to modify their body in such a way that they will mutilate themselves forever doesn't seem at first to be a grave evil. It starts off by affirming, accepting. There's all of these qualifications and categories that are made up and don't really belong, but it seems to be not really something harmful, and it's just enough to have you let your guard down, and then it's your child that is confused about what God has said, and ends up going down this path that causes them to, their line ends with them because they can't reproduce. and biblically that's a curse. And we know that this is something that's happening in it, and it's happening in the name of tolerance, and it's happening in the name of all of these good, godly Christian virtues, but it's distorted. So could the demons be playing a long game and saying, those closed-minded Christians, they only have two categories in the spirit world, but look at this spirit. This spirit really didn't do anything harmful. I'm trying to think of, what Screw Tape would say to Wormwood. Do you want to just come out and be malicious all the time, or are you playing a long game?
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, my turn. My grandma passed away 3 years ago. Her birthday was in January. In 2020, her number was still active. It was a prepaid number. If you paid an X amount of money, your number would still be active for a year. I didn't know this. Just after midnight on her birthday, my mom sent her a text saying, "Happy birthday, mom." Just before 1 a.m., she received a text from that number saying, "Thank you." Okay. I would, before I run and say, jump, before I run and jump to conclusion saying, well, this was something spiritual or paranormal, I can say, well, maybe it was a, automatic message that it was activated by the phone company that actually they're responding to something like that with "thank you." It would make sense, no big deal. But the girl ends up her message by saying, her story by saying this: "We went over the next day just to find the phone exactly where she left it." So the grandma, before she died, and the battery was dead. Okay. We called the phone company and they said it was still on her name. So basically, the company said, "Nope, it's not us. We didn't text back.
Yeah.
The phone and the number still responds to your grandma. I mean, belongs to your grandma." But the lady was dead and her phone was dead. Yet the girl's mom received from her grandma, she received a message saying "thank you." I don't know how to respond to this except by interviewing some of the guests on the channel and reading some of the stories that spiritual entities know how to mess up with technology. So they're not alien. They're maybe what we call them aliens, but they're not aliens through technology. And they had thousands of years of time to learn, to adopt, and to gain all this knowledge. So even though it's a very short story, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily spooky, I would say it's very intriguing. Like, how does this happen? So I think it could be something that is like coming from a spirit.
I wonder if the prepaid wireless company would be able to get text records and see if this was a text message that originated with that phone, or if it just showed up in the inbox of this other phone. Because if it originated on this line, then you would have had to have somebody manipulating it somehow in order to get this signal from this device to that one. But if not, if it's almost scarier if it just showed up in the inbox of this phone, and not originating from this one.
Yeah, and also I know that they cannot determine the exact minute and second when the person dies, right? They can determine an hour and something even closer, but not the exact minute and second. But I'm just curious if they would know approximately the time she died and when the message was received from the dead grandma. That would be interesting to know, and it will even put more this mystical atmosphere on the whole topic. If the lady died before the message was sent, then I would say it's definitely not grandma, unless we're talking about the ghost of that grandma. And I don't even want to go there because it's too much speculation. But nevertheless, it's a very interesting story. It's not scary. It's just, you know,
It
I
kind
don't.
of reminds me of something I watched on the Travel Channel. This was a year or so ago, and there was a building that had a like a what do you call it, uh, security alarm. That's it. I was trying to think smoke alarm, but no, it was a security alarm, and it would go directly to the police department. And it they said that they would get like 3 or 4 calls every week or every month coming from the building. They had disconnected the service. They had cut the line, and they were still getting calls from the building, and the police would have to show up like 3 or 4 times. I can't remember if it was a week or a month, but it was like, they actually interviewed, I think it was the chief of police on that episode, because they were like, yeah, this is something that is happening, and we have no explanation for it. The company that installed the security hardware has discontinued the service, and they're like, we're not even connecting it. We don't know what's happening.
Yeah, it's definitely that part. What you said, it's definitely more eerie than the whole story about that grandma. But I think there's a lot of stuff that we used to see in the old horror and sci-fi movies, even though they're just like, right, when we were kids we would think, oh, it's just a fictional movie. But I think more and more things from those supposed fictional movies turn out to be true as the time passes, and it's just fascinating. I'm always thinking, like, did these people know more than we, the authors of these movies, did they know more than we did? Were they visionaries? Were they receiving something that they had information, so they put them in a movie, and you're like, oh, it's just a movie, but maybe they're trying to actually expose and tell something. I don't know. Again, it's speculative, but it's so interesting.
Or maybe somewhat creepier, is the idea that they were including these in the movies, and so now that's in our conscience as a culture, and the demons are using that, because it's interesting, when you look at the UFOs, they're always just slightly faster than our current technology. So like back in the 40s and the 50s, they were just slightly faster than the aircraft that we have. Now they, 0 to like 15,000 miles an hour very quickly, but it's like it's always just ahead of where we're at. Um, and so I wonder if it's kind of the same thing where the demonic is playing off of what we would expect. All right.
That reminds me, when I had Dr. Hugh Ross, he was saying something similar. Like, in the past, when our technology wasn't developed so much, like more than 50 years ago, people who supposedly came into the touch with aliens would tell them, oh, we'll live on the moon. So then our technology and knowledge of science would evolve eventually. So we're like, oh, nothing lives on moon. So then the next time that aliens had supposedly contact with someone from our planet, they're like, oh, we're coming from Venus. And they were like, oh, we believe you. But then when the scientific knowledge would advance, and like, nothing can live on Venus, they're like, then aliens are saying, oh, we're coming from another galaxy. So that reminds me of what you said. They'll always know what we know, and they're just trying to give us something because we don't know. So we're like, and people are gullible.
Right.
Just being honest. So we would, oh yeah, that's true. And then when the knowledge and science would advance, we're like, oh no, that's actually not true. So the aliens will come with new information,
Yep.
always like a little bit in advance, a little bit in front of us to give us something, but they're deceiving us the whole time because they're not aliens; they're spirit, demonic beings. Yeah, that perfectly matches what Dr. Vrass said. Okay, next story.
All right.
I went to a. I can read. I can continue reading because my story was short. Yeah, I went to a concert with some friends one night. I believe it was early, sometime around January 2016. We all had a really good time, nothing out of the ordinary. Once we came back, one of the people we would gone with started passing out crystals and stones and stuff to look at. This dude brought out this amethyst crystal that was over like 300 years old, and it was passed down in his family for generations. Really awesome stuff. I don't know what the hell happened next, but one of the girls grabbed the amethyst crystal to look at it, and as soon as it met her fingers, her entire facial expression changed. Her eyes were black, super dilated, wild. She started sneering at all of us and talking backwards.
Wow.
Shaun, any comment before I go on? Because this is already enough material for, I think, the episode itself.
Well, so first of all, the amethyst crystal is thousands of years old, but I understand they had it in the form of a crystal for like 300 years. Um, but So I remember there being this article that crystals will hold energy, like not like in a like a woo woo kind of way, but where they would like project the image of like a Virgin Mary onto this forming crystal solution, and the image would be embedded in the crystal. So the crystal's like taking in energy, and so I can believe that crystals would have, especially if there was negative things happening there, they would be like what would soak up all that negativity. Um, and in fact, I got to tell you a story. I once had a quartz crystal before I was a Christian, and I was kind of into stones and stuff, like all pagans are. And there was this one particular quartz crystal that I had that we had to keep locked in a drawer because anytime anyone touched it, it felt like it was burning their hands. I had tons of other crystals. Had what was it? Fluoride, not fluoride, fluorine or something like that. It's the student crystal. We had jasper. We had amethyst. We used to sleep with amethyst crystals under our pillows because supposedly that would like protect your dreams. But this one quartz crystal that I had, and it was a smooth polished crystal. I had other quartz crystals that were rough because they're cheaper, but this was a smooth polished quartz crystal. And anybody that came over to the house, I would just be like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Hand it to them, and they would say, "It feels like it's burning my hand." So I think that crystals absolutely can hold on to energy, and that super negative things can attach to crystals.
Okay, a question that out of blue I didn't plan to ask, and it's a difficult one. If crystals can be abused and used in the occult and magic, and you had bad experience, this person had bad experience with that, what is the good side of crystal that would God make them initially? Like, do you know of any good usage that we can use crystals today?
Um, well, we know that the kingdom of God will be made out of these crystals, right? We know that when God appears, He appears on like sapphire, and He appears to be when He's seen in the vision, it was like cut from jasper, I believe. Um, and I know that the 12 stones on the breastplate of the high priest on the ephod. Um, and I don't know. I haven't done a lot of research on that, but I wonder if that's for protection. As your, because typically anything that you're going to wear over a breastplate, it's not just going to be like ornamentation. Going into the presence of God is something dangerous, and so maybe this would be something that would like disperse. And I have no idea. I'm just going off the what I know about.
Yeah, see, for me, before this story, I would just think it's just to display God's glory, because God marvels in creating beautiful things, and all these beautiful colors and beautiful shape, crystals, including diamonds, they all reflect God's creativity, design, beauty. So for me, I would not think it has any purpose except to like, look, this is what God made, the same God who made stars and these moons. Like sometimes the mere purpose of something is to display God's glory. So I would think, wow, this is just forget about financial aspect, forget about like if it can be abused or used for this and this. For me, it will be just like, wow, look at this amazing object I'm holding in my head. Like just God made it. I don't know how, but I think he's pleased to have made something like this. And by me marveling at the object that he made, he's pleased because by me praising this, I'm praising the one who made it. So he's pleased and glad in that. That's how I would perceive it. But then people abuse all of God's creation, including the occult, and I just think it's sad.
Yeah, I can tell you that it is at least that what you said. Like that is, I mean, you're dead on. That is at least what that is. But the pan human experience, all humans from all cultures everywhere have had this experience with these particular stones, and they never just treat them as pretty rocks. They always have them as ornamentation. They have them as charms or amulets, and they're always treated with this spiritual or religious context. and they're highly prized. They're set in gold. Like these are this is just the human experience. There's something special about these rocks.
Yeah. I'm just going back the last sentence or two. So when this girl touched this crystal, it says that her entire facial expression changed. So she was like demonized in a second. Her eyes became complete black. And this is another aspect that I said we saw these things a million times in movies, right?
Hmm?
When person completely loses itself in a second, becomes demonized through different, uh, different reasons, different it can be magical rite, it can be incantation, whatever. But now the girl wasn't even doing any of this. She just simply touched an object and she became demonized. Her eyes became complete dark, complete black. This is, I would say, this is probably a good if you're there with a friend, this is probably a good moment for you, well, not to run away and leave your friend alone, but probably just to knock off that crystal away, get rid of it, and then maybe take her home. Just take care of her. And not, if you see that something is dangerous like that, you don't have to be a person of faith. You can say, hey, we're playing with fire, maybe
Yeah.
we should stop. Okay. And like you said, who knows who was playing with that crystal and using and abusing for all these dark arts activities and purposes. So God knows how much this crystal has accumulated. um, I don't know what word proper to use, but evil or uh, some satanic, I don't know, properties. And who knows if a spiritual entity in the same way could possess an idol totem back in the past. Who knows if in the same fashion demonic entity maybe it can possess the crystal as well. It's not impossible.
Yeah, I mean, if we think about, in Scripture, we see God working through objects like we have Paul's handkerchief, we've got the bones of Elijah, and God works through things. And of course, I know that there are some of our brothers that would say, well, that's just providence, but it could also be that this is spiritual technology, and that just because God works through these things, it doesn't mean um, that Satan can't work through them too. And in fact, I think that we intuitively know that just as there's consecration, where there's a space that is made suitable for God, us to meet God, there's also desecration, where there's a space that is not suitable for people because it is completely owned by powers and principalities.
Well said. Thank you. Uh, Two people had to leave because they couldn't stop throwing up. That's insane. This is almost like a little spiritual nuclear bomb that once when it exploded, it just affected, of course, in a very negative way, everyone who was in surrounding. So not just the girl who touched it, but everyone surrounding. So I can only imagine how powerful and full with dark energy and demonic possession was this little crystal that was affecting on people surrounding you. That's insane. This is literally insane. So they couldn't stop throwing up almost instantaneously after her demeanor changed. She stood up and started saying weird stuff. Okay, so she was probably saying something like in Necronomicon, even though Necronomicon was, it's a fake, you know, not literally voodoo, but it's a fake book of magic, rituals and dark arts. But I would just imagine that she would start speaking like Christians. Some Christians can speak in tongues. She
Mhm.
was imitating that gift, but it's actually cursed because she would probably speak maybe some forbidden, dead language, or maybe one of the demonic languages. But whatever she was saying, it wasn't good because it was affecting other people to throw up. So in the same way that we can speak blessings and bless other people, say, hey, I'll pray for you, may God be with you, bless you, heal you, prosper you. This was affecting also in the verbal way, but negatively everyone around. So she stood up and started saying weird stuff, and we almost thought it was a possession case. We almost thought, like, what else should happen that you'll be certain?
Yeah, I'm
I
already
mean,
there.
like, imagine seeing all that. You're like, I'm not sure. Can you give me more signs, more clues? Like, I need to think
Weave
about
head
it.
spin around in the pea soup projectile vomit.
Yeah, and then you're like seeing beheaded, heads flying around. You're like, okay, maybe, just maybe. but she seemed very aware the entire time. Okay, so the possessed girl was very aware the entire time, and I can tell you she was not happy about it. Like no
Right.
one sane would be happy about this happening.
No.
She started talking about how someone in the group was cheating on her with another girl. Wow. So now another layer of this insanity happens. She gets this hidden knowledge experience that was probably given to her by the demon who possessed her because it was transferred through the crystal to her soul.
Profit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, she started talking about how someone in the group was cheating on her with another girl who was there in the room with us. The whole thing got super awkward. No kidding. Like this is better than any movie I've seen, any horror movie. I have to correct myself. The whole thing got super awkward and honestly terrifying. Things were moving around the house. Doors were slamming by themselves. Shaun, this is the scariest story we got for tonight. So doors were slamming by themselves. Newsflash: they were not slamming by themselves. It
No.
was something or someone pushing them. Right.
That's right.
The possessed girl seemed to be the person who was making it happen, but it seemed paranormal. Well, yeah, these two don't contradict each other. It was paranormal, and it was the entity in the girl doing this. A few of us eventually moved to another room to talk about some stuff. Yeah, leave your girl there possessed and you just go and chit chat with your friends. Sounds good.
Yeah, there's a
Uh,
deaf person in it. That's what I would be talking about. Like, when are we going to call the priest?
you know what? I'm thinking if I was at this party as a Christian, but not me, because then it sounds like I'm special. If you were there as a Christian and out of ignorance or just amazement, oh, look what a beautiful crystal it is. Nothing magical. You're just thinking, look, like it's a nice object. I bet if you're a Christian and touch it, this demonic entity would not be able to turn your eyes to be complete dark and to make people vomit because you have Christ in you, the hope of glory, who is way stronger and bigger than these entities.
Okay, I just had a thought. Of course, I haven't read on. I'm not cheating. But what if the crystal is blessed and she's actually a witch? And so the crystal is forcing her to manifest, making everyone sick. So she's just appearing as what she is inwardly, this wicked, evil person, and the crystal's forcing her to manifest.
Wow, I didn't think about that. Yeah, because we were not giving much information about this girl,
No, no,
except that yeah, she just seems like a poor innocent girl who was a victim. But yeah, we don't know if she was involved into something like
no.
witchcraft. We don't know. Okay, cool. Um, as we were all trying to figure out what to do, one of our friends, the one I had mentioned earlier, who was apparently cheating on her, said that they thought the girl was crazy. Well, yeah, of course, you're trying to defend yourself. And just as he said this, a huge chunk of ice fell from the top of our roof directly onto the top of his windshield, shattering it. So, okay, I have to stop. This is insane. So, I think what I'm perceiving is that the girl found out what was happening through the demon that possessed her, and the demon was protecting the girl and the body it took for a while, so that it manifested like, I'm not insane. Look what will happen if you keep like talking, behind my back. This is what I'm getting. I don't know if you would agree.
Yeah, no, I totally. That yeah, I'm not crazy. Watch this. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Safe light repairs, safe light replace. Fix the windshield.
Yeah. Okay. She keeps saying, once things died down for the night, we were all about to try to sleep. Come to find out, we're supposed to share a room with this girl. Nope. We sat awake upstairs on the second floor. She was on the first floor and heard a ton of weird noises from her downstairs: metal scraping, fingers tapping on the table, hysterical crying, and then immediate laughing, and then something completely different. We thought everything was over. Maybe she had fallen asleep. They were like, please, God, make her fall asleep. And then my boyfriend pulls up his Facebook account to check and see if any of our friends had posted anything about the crazy night. The first post on his news feed was a post from her from 5 minutes earlier. It read, congratulations, you have awoken the dragon. Shaun, I got goosebumps again. This is another level of insanity. I promise it can be turned into a book or even a TV series. Congratulations, you awoken the dragon. And that's the first message he sees on his phone. I would say we were far away with coincidences by now, and we're far away with like maybe it was paranormal. Like,
Right.
girl, like what else do you want to see? Like a ground opening and Leviathan popping out with all of his heads. Like, what else do you want? Like
Yeah.
like and besides that, she says, oh, the girl was hysterically laughing and then this and that. Yeah, that sounds like the demon didn't leave the girl. You may think things got more quiet, but the demon didn't leave the poor girl. And even if she was involved or not involved in the witchcraft, I don't want to assume the worst about her, but let's say even if she was, I still feel bad for her because she was tortured by this entity or plurality, maybe entities in her that were making her say and do these things and gain all these supernatural powers. So I'm thinking two things. First, what happened with the crystal at this moment? Did the
Right.
guy take it back? And second thing, you had awoken the dragon. So the dragon spirit, the serpentine one, the diabolical one, the Satan. So, I mean, Satan himself. What crosses your mind when we read passage like this? I mean, from the paragraph like this.
Yeah. So the awakening the dragon. I First of all, I think awakening the dragon. I think that's a Bruce Lee movie. Or no, that's Enter the Dragon. uh, but yeah, no, definitely. I feel like this is playing on a few different tropes. I mean, one is obviously biblical, the dragon, eschatological dragon, Satan, but also the dragon, Leviathan, and then the serpentine creatures, the seraphim, right? And those, we might think of those as dragons. So maybe this is identifying as a Satan. Maybe it's just saying this is some sort of demonic creature, or it could be that it's just identifying as a force of destruction, like a dragon. But either way, it's letting you know that you're in danger.
So if Bruce Lee defeated the dragon with his kung fu, are you saying we should be spiritually and theologically equipped with spiritual kung fu to defeat the dragon?
Well, I
Makes
mean,
sense.
it depends because at first we had Kung Fu versus the dragon, but then Poe became the dragon warrior with his Kung Fu, and so now Kung Fu is the dragon.
Okay, I don't want to go there because that sounds like diabolical symbiosis. We'll just say it's good conservative Christians, right?
There you
With
go.
some kung fu, but the pure one, the theological and spiritual good kung fu. While reading these words on Facebook, right? So congratulations, you have awoken the dragon. We literally hear what sounds like a big reptile. Okay, this is the best story ever. I'm not kidding. We literally hear a big reptile, like a crocodile or something, walking up the stairs. So this girl is now moving from a, I mean, I don't know. This girl, either something left her and it manifested to sound like a big reptilian, or this girl is able to maybe shapeshift because demonic possession, change her shape for a season. Um, and then maybe her fit change, maybe her limbs change, her appearance change for a second, and she started looking and sounding different. And I know it sounds insane. I don't say I fully believe this before you start throwing rocks at me as a Christian. I don't know what was happening, but for people who saw an episode with this pastor missionary whom I interviewed half a year ago, who was he still is a missionary in Cambodia. He was experiencing these things when he was dealing with the supernatural realm. His former neighbor who eventually died. When kids were going from the neighborhood will go and play and like sneak in this neighbor's backyard, they saw once there was a seance of this former neighbor with other people who had cloaks, and they were like, they're all humans. Kids swear that they witnessed their faces through this seance and incantation were changing to be almost like animals. They're like changing shapes, humans. So if someone who is a solid brother in Christ, a pastor and a missionary telling me that, I have to take that into consideration, that like these are not fairy tales. It comes from a credible man of God who dedicated his whole life to missions, to the gospel of Jesus Christ. And when he says something, and I read a story from a non-Christian like this, I don't have to discard the story that comes from a non-Christian source just because it's non-Christian. I can actually use what I heard and what I'm reading now and try to see similarities, like, oh yeah, but this is happening because of, and I can draw from a Christian worldview. And Christianity is not just the Bible, because God didn't tell us so many things. Christianity is also historical theology, philosophy, drawing from this beautiful cosmos that we share with this spooky and paranormal entities. So we're trying to understand to the best of our abilities, even though in this life we will never fully understand things. But I'm trying to understand, either something came out from her, that demonic entity or entities that manifested in flesh like a reptilian, or maybe she for a second started looking and sounding different. um I don't know what is your take on this, but I'm very curious to learn.
So about the shape shifting, in scriptures it tells us that a person becomes like what they worship. So if your idol is deaf, dumb, and blind, then that you become as your idol, deaf, dumb, and blind. When we worship the living God, Jesus Christ, we become conformed to the image of Christ through that worship. When someone is worshiping demons, maybe they become conformed to the image of those dark powers. Um, and secondly, I'm just imagining from horror movies, uh, this chick like grudge crawling up the stairs, dragging her body behind her to sound like a reptile, because all reptiles have those long, heavy tails. Um, so I'm assuming that's what she's doing, is just dragging herself up the stairs with her body behind her, contorting in weird images, and yeah, so creepy, very creepy.
I like Godzilla movies, and usually he's a good guy, at least in American version of movies. But if I would see mini Godzilla in the building where I'm at, or in my apartment, that's it. I'll be freaking out. How do you even fight it? Again, yes, you can pray. Yeah, that's it. That's all you can do. But you cannot physically fight with this entity, because it's a demonic entity that can choose from becoming like Predator, from becoming invisible to visible. How do you cannot physically fight this entity? It's way more powerful, it's way more older than you, it knows more things than you. It's not God, of course. So the only way you can pray, you can fight against this entity, will be praying and commanding in the name of Jesus to leave. That's all you can do. Honestly, that's all you can do. You cannot throw pots and pans and knives and hoping you can kill it. You cannot. This is not a physical entity.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's comparing this as a crocodile or something similar. So a reptilian that is walking up the stairs. This is when my heartbeat will start going up and up until it will explode. Like, okay, like, and because it's coming slowly, and the only thing that separates you and this entity is the door, and the door is not a big deal for an entity like this. So she keeps giving more details. There was this heavy, padded, rough footsteps, stepping step by step slowly up the stairs. I promise this is like everything, like this girl combined everything, all the creepiest moments from all the horror movies in the last 50 years. That's how it sounds like. That, like, not everyone would be not everyone will be able to deal with this and stay sane and normal after experience like this.
No.
I guarantee you will have PTSD and nightmares years after this. I cannot explain this to this day, and I have chills writing this. This girl played some Jedi mind tricks on us. It's funny how she explains, but she's trying. So you know, that's not funny because she's trying, but it's also funny how she's comparing with Star Wars. The thing that creeped us out even more about this dragon thing was that she literally carried around a little stuffed lizard toy that she named Jerry Garcia after the singer. Go figure. Okay, I have to stop here again, Shaun. Wow. Okay, this is a big what if. But what if through the crystal, through this girl came out this entity, and by her carrying this toy, something that was small, the demonic entity or entities in her were able to manifest into the bigger the bigger well, the big size entity that was resembling the small toy. Now, this is a huge sci-fi. I'm not even saying that happened. I'm just big what if,
Right.
like I don't even know if that will be well in the spirit realm. Everything is possible. I don't want to say if it's possible. To me, that's insane. But I'm just trying to figure out like, okay, and why did she even have that toy? Was she even, if this was her favorite toy, was she just getting around because girls, they're different than guys. We wouldn't do this, but maybe for her, it was a cute thing that she would carry around, like, oh, this is my pet, almost like it's innocent. But again, we are speculating if this girl was involved into some witchcraft. Could it be that this item, this toy, was more than a toy? So could it be that combined with crystal, it created something or manifested something that came out from this toy? So it was like a bigger living version of this toy. Again, this was like if I would play with mini Godzilla and now huge Godzilla will pop out. I would never imagine myself in my life talking about these things as if they're possible. I would always laugh at these things. And again, I don't want to sound like I think this really happened or my explanation is the sound one, but I'm trying to deal with the text given to us, with material given to us. We don't have more than what this eyewitness testified and wrote down. But I mean, in your understanding, even if it's a limited one, right? Like, how can a big reptilian resemble the toy reptilian? Like, I mean, that's insane.
Yeah. Um, One thing that I would go to is, I mean, I know. So in the occult world, there are these thought forms. I think and I think they're more contemporarily known as like tulpas. So like you think this thing and you pour all your energy into it, and it becomes like the aggregate of all of the energy and intention that you put into it, almost like an idol. Oh, well, exactly like an idol. Uh, and so I wonder how much this little lizard toy she had became this idol, and you would get a demonic energy attached to it because, of course, you're receiving worship. For lack of a better word, you're receiving worship and adoration from the image of God, and so these things are able to receive what they always wanted, which is affirmation and worship from God, but from the image of God. And so I wonder if there wasn't this creature attached to this or this being attached to this. And at some point, with the handling of the crystal, there was this, it went from being an oppressive attachment to a full possession. Um, but it could have also been something that happened earlier, and that this girl could have either knowingly or unknowingly been attracting this creature or been attracting this being, and the crystal was just a catalyst for this transformation.
Yeah, this is also insane what I'm about to say. But as you were talking, I was imagining how this may work, and of course, I don't know, and I don't want to know, of course. But I'm thinking, if these things can be charged, and they're charged with demonic entities, powers, presence, through witchcraft, through incantations, through magical books, through sacrifices, animals. I don't even want to go there. But if this is possible, this thing basically works like your cell phone, but your magic cell phone on steroids. So once when you charge it, it does all these insane things, and it becomes powerful because it has energy. But because it drains out, it needs to be recharged spiritually. So that's how, as you were talking, I was just, you know, that image started coming to my mind. Like, man, this is like almost like a cell phone in a way. You know, I don't
Yep.
know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, the story's almost over. We muddled up the courage to peer over the side of the staircase as the thing was just about to hit the top two steps, and there was nothing. Absolutely nothing. At that point, I would be saying, "Praise Jesus," and I will leave the house. That's what I would do. We felt completely insane. We stayed in that spot and did not move for the rest of the night. Okay, I don't know was that wise, but let me see. Eventually, the downstairs noises ended as well, and everything was silent. We crept downstairs after we felt that we were safe to do so. Whether it was a paranormal experience, she's still doubting it was a paranormal. Like, what else? Like, you want the house to start levitating and flying in the air? Like, but then it may say, "Oh, it was tornado." Like, I don't know what else can happen. Whether it was a paranormal experience or some black voodoo magic, again, why is she putting this as opposites? These all things work together.
Yeah.
Or just dealing with someone completely off their rocker, again, this doesn't contradict each other. We didn't know. All we knew was that we were terrified and did not feel safe that night. When we finally got back downstairs and looked at everything, it was weird. The girl was gone, and all of the cabinets were open. All of the doors, including the basement and the outside front door, were open, which could have been terrible because we had 3 indoor cats at the time. Okay, I understand you love animals and cats, and that's adorable. But this is your concern. Not that you could have died, but you're concerned that 3 cats could have got lost. Okay. We also found a bunch of weird memorabilia and the relics in the basement a while after this happened. Wow, this last sentence gives more to the context. So someone was involved into witchcraft. I don't know, was it a girl? I don't know, was it the owners of the house? I don't know, was it well, the boy who gave that crystal was obviously involved into this, because you don't just save and preserve something like that, but not just that. You don't just abuse and use it to charge it with dark energy if it was just for oh, just an ornament. No. So besides the boy who brought this to the party and gave to the girl who touched it, we don't know who was also involved in anything dark. But as we see, they found in the basement all these relics after this happened. So something was giving the context and the background to make these things uh, become real and to happen. So this is not a normal household. This is not your regular traditional family. They're just working, going, playing. Even if they don't go to church, they're not religious. This is not your regular family. This is a family that where at least one member was involved into the occult. That's what I'm perceiving. I don't know if you would agree.
Yeah, this is definitely not a case of a spiritual creature invading human habitation. This is a place of where these teens or children were in the domain of this spirit because there's relics in the basement. This is obviously a place where this creature is welcome. Um, and so that's why there was all of this manifesting able to happen because this was a principality and power within its own domain. And so you're kind of the invader at that point. Um, and when it said that there was nothing there, I mean, I would just challenge that. There was nothing there that you could see. Uh, and it to me, it felt like you recently did a show um, with this guy who had recounted a story of like the werewolf creature. Uh, and I was just thinking about that. Got to the top couple stairs, and then you're just kind of left hanging in this suspense after the werewolf creature left. And it's kind of the same thing with them. They wanted to stay there the whole night. It reminded me of the dude that just wanted to stay there. He's like, no, I'm not leaving. uh and that's, I mean, I can identify with that feeling of, I'm not going down there. There was just something on the stairs and I didn't see it leave, and I don't know what it is, but I'm not going down there.
Yeah, good point. I'm not saying I would go immediately, but after a while, I think I would be safer outside the house than in that creepy house. Or maybe at least wait until sun goes up. I don't know. I mean, it's easy for us to speculate because we're not in their shoes, but this was one of the most insane and most unbelievable and creepiest or eeriest, like our segment, eerie stories, right?
Mhm.
One of the eeriest stories I have ever read or heard in person or online. And I think it would deserve its own novel or a movie or TV series.
Yeah.
But I also want to say these things don't happen by coincidence. This entity was welcomed in this midst now because it all exploded and people start getting scared and vomiting and they heard and maybe they're innocent. Maybe they just went to the party and as kids, they like smoking weed, they like drinking. So all of these things can open the door to something spiritual. But I'm not saying that they were necessarily involved into something more than that. But I am saying that this doesn't happen out of coincidence. Otherwise, it would be happening to everyone at every day. So this entity was welcome there, and
Right.
it wasn't just someone who I even think, even though I was never involved into New Age and magic, I think even this was not even by someone who is a newbie. This could have been by someone who was experiencing dark arts, maybe even a warlock, something of that sort. Because if you can summon something like that, or you can experience something like that, there's a shapeshifter, a reptilian, something like that. You have this crystal, all like this, charged with negative energy. I mean, someone spent tons of time to learn these things and practice them until they got better. It almost reminds me of those, again, as someone who loves fantasy books and fantasy genre in general, reminds me of those stories when there's like a apprentice wizard who's learning things and he becomes master wizard. So I'm not saying this person was mastering their spiritual dark arts, but this was not a newbie. This was someone who probably spent years, right? And you know more than me because you said you were a pagan before coming to Christ.
Well, and what's scarier is that this person didn't invest all of their time, energy, and financial resources into becoming what they obviously were, in order for them to be able to have not only all of these relics, but in order to have a space, a desecrated space where this creature is capable of manifesting. But they didn't do that to scare some girls. There's something much darker happening here. Um, and I think that they are lucky that they got out alive.
Good point. Do you want to read the next story? I know it's a short one, and then I think you have a short response to that story as well.
My family used to have a maid when I was very young. When she cleaned stuff, or when she cleaned, stuff would end up going missing until my mom found out she puts random stuff lying around into black plastic bags and leaves them around. My mom then asked her what the heck she was doing, or what she was doing that for. She tells her, speaking in another language, while pointing to her back. It translates to, I like you, but he's asking me to kill you. My mom immediately sent my grandfather and me upstairs and threw her out to the porch. My grandmother started sprinkling the maid with holy water, and she started to scream. My uncle came over to when my mother told her this and got mad too. She ended up getting sent back to her country, but she called my mom one last time before leaving, while trying to apologize.
Hey, Sean, before you read the response, and I included this response because it helps uh, identifying
Hmm.
more details in the story. But imagining of God forbid, but imagining this is happening in your midst. You're hiring someone, you think they're friendly, and I mean the lady was friendly and she said, I do like you, but this one in the corner, what is in my corner? Donald Duck
Oh no!
figurine. So imagine you say, this one is asking me to hurt you, to harm you. how would you feel, especially as the father of your household? How would you feel? What would you do with this person that you paid and is friendly, never showed any signs of aggression, mental illness, nothing? But this person is telling you, I like you, Shaun, but this entity over there in the corner is telling me to hurt you. How
Uh,
would you react?
yeah. Well, first of all, I would say take me to this thing in the corner that's asking me to hurt you because that's got to get out of my house too. But also, yeah, you might need to find a new place to work because we don't do that.
Yeah, but also see the next detail, because they sprinkle her with holy water and she was screaming. So I would dare to say that it wasn't girl, but it was this entity, demonic entity in her that was um, reacting to the holy water and making her scream, right? Because demons don't have bodies, and as we know, but they can take a form of a body, like
Mhm.
having a host, like this maid, poor maid. I empathize with her, and then the demon was reacting through her body by screaming. And I mean, by me witnessing that, that will be another scary thing, but it will be a testimony and a proof that, yeah, this lady is possessed. She's not alone in her body. Someone else is sharing her body as a vessel. Okay, and then we have a short reply to this story.
Uh, she pointed at the haint riding on her back. It's a really old southern U.S. vernacular term for a ghost, like haunt. I used it because a lot of other cultures around the world do believe that spirit attachments hang on around a living person's neck, shoulders, and back. But here in the US, I've only really heard people in from southern states talk about ghosts or sometimes hags riding people. So I use the word haint because if Indonesia has a specific word for an entity that spiritually attaches to and oppresses a human by sitting on the person's back, and they probably do have a specific word, I wouldn't know it. So I use an English word that connotatively comes closer than just ghost. And I do know a little bit about haints. My wife is from Appalachia, and so that yeah, it's a word that doesn't necessarily mean like ghost, or necessarily mean demon, or necessarily mean like dark entity, but it kind of has this whole thing like it's something that it is bound to the territory. It's a spirit of this place. So you're just kind of thinking of like a spirit of place. Um, and it is where there's a haint, uh, you ain't, because you should not be in that area. That's not something that can be traditionally. It's not considered to be something that can be got rid of. That is the spirit of that place, and it is never good.
Yeah, I want to say that this story reminded me again of the Eastern European mythology uh, that is still prevalent among the regular people, especially if they live in rural places and they didn't give up on a lot of pagan beliefs. So back in the whole Eastern Europe, we have an entities, spirit entities, they can actually, well, that's a story. Of course, I don't know that, and I don't want to know. But there's a story that different entities can actually, if you come into their area where they dwell, maybe a forest or something like that, they can actually jump on you and ride you. And we have entities like that. One of them is called Drekavac. One of them is called Kikimora, which is more northeast Europe. I'm from South Europe, so Southeast Europe. So Drekavac will be our thing. Kikimora is northeast Europe. There's also another one called Mavka and Rusalka. I also heard about Rusalka because Rusalka would be a feminine spirit. But all of these different spirits throughout the whole Eastern Europe, so Northeast Europe, Southeast Europe, this whole region has entities like that. And I bet in all ancient mythologies, in Africa and Asia, in Europe, in Australia, in both Americas, I bet a lot of civilizations have just different names of these entities who can actually not just possess you or bother you, bring nightmares and attack you. We know that, but I can also actually jump on you and ride you. I
Yep.
bet a lot of old civilizations have just names are different.
Well, and there's a thinking like contemporary. I think there was a movie that came out like maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I think it was called Shutter or something like that. And the whole premise of the movie was that there was this guy and girl got married, and she was taking pictures around the house and seeing this ghost girl crawling around. And at the end of the movie, she takes a picture of her husband, and this ghost is riding around his neck. And like the whole time, his like he had been having neck and back pains. And it turns out that was like his ex girlfriend, and he ended up killing her. Sorry to ruin the movie, but like that's this. I mean, I can see that perfectly portrayed here, that was a trope that they were going off of for the movie. But yeah, it's even present in modern culture.
Wow, thank you for that detail. Oh my gosh, it's insane that once when you start diving into any topic you like, how it goes through the rabbit trail of all these subtopics and other things, and it's a lot of information. But after you, you know, get deeper into that, so many things start to connect and make sense, even if they come from movies. Again, I'm not drawing theology or
No,
spiritual reflection from movies, but I'm saying how if I'm liking information about something, I'm going to try to find something similar that helps me understand the object or the topic I'm trying to dissect. So, in the same fashion, when we tell people, hey, if you want to understand many things from the Old Testament, it would help you if you would study ancient Near East, civilizations, nations, mythologies, because they can help you with some of the same items, gods, idolatry, how they would see world, hell, chaos monsters like Leviathan. Like Israel shared a lot of similar beliefs with surrounding nations. So it will help you if you would study some of these things to help you understand, Old Testament. So in the same fashion, when we not attack, tackle with these supernatural or paranormal topics, we try to dissect them biblically. But because we don't know so much, that's why we're trying to see from eyewitness accounts, from media, and just to somehow put them all together and say, well, what if this? What if this? What if this? So I hope Christians who are fundamentalists and watching this, they will not think like we're trying to spread this as thus says the Lord. No, always stay to the Bible. We're just speculating because we love these stories, we love God and sound theology, but we also like to see what's happening out there so that we can dissect things biblically and try to give sound argument and sound advice to everyone listening how they can protect themselves by the blood, name, and power of Jesus Christ so they can be safe, but also they'll not just be defensive, they'll be attacking these entities and winning the territory for Christ. So that is our goal, to be knowledgeable and nerdy and theological, yes, but also we like having fun when we're dealing with these things, because not everyone is willing to um, go through these things and dissect them, especially in some churches or in academia. You'll be laughed at, or you'll be looking like you're insane because you want to read these things. But we want to be open-minded and see what's there, and just help people by giving them prescriptions when it comes to the Bible and practical life, how to deal with these things.
well, and something that I would like to say is, as you said, we're not going to stories, cinema, or literature to inform our theology. But something that can't be overlooked is they are studying our theology to form their stories, their cinema, all of this. So they're actually coming to us to learn how to write these stories in a way that can play on that relationship between us and our faith. And so that's why you see so many Christian tropes in these stories, is because they are going to theology and they're studying, well, what would this look like? And so we're not going there to inform our theology. What we're doing is we're looking at our theology and we're looking at the story, and seeing, okay, how does this connect to an event? How do we see from our theology through the story to the facts that actually happened, and then read that back into our own life experience?
Amen. One of the last stories for tonight, it's a very cool one. And soon you'll find out it's because I like castles and medieval stuff. So let me read it. When I was 20, I visited a town in Italy that has a medieval tower that you can climb, and I would totally go there. I love these things. My girlfriend didn't want to, so I went up on my own and was the only person at the time doing so. It was a hot, sunny day when I entered the tower. There was a flight of stairs that went around the edge of the tower and had no windows. Climbing the tower took it the very most 5 minutes. Okay, so it was not a very tall tower. At the top of the stairs, there was a ladder and a trapdoor that opened up onto the roof of the tower. When I opened it, I found the weather had changed dramatically and was overcast and threatening. I forget if there was thunder or not, but I was genuinely concerned about lightning. Being at the top of a tall tower in that weather, I cautiously climbed out onto the roof just to have a quick look before going straight down. Okay, I have to stop here. Shaun, am I going insane, or this or something supernatural is happening there? So the guy is at the foot of the tower with his girlfriend. Beautiful weather. We don't know if it was spring, summer, but it's beautiful weather, warm, sunny, right? He climbs on the top of the tower, and the tower is not that tall, and suddenly there's lightnings, and it's like horrible weather. It's almost as if he went to another dimension or realm.
That's exactly what I was thinking. That there, he has gone through a portal. He's in another place because he's not where the top of the tower appeared to be when he was standing on the ground. By going up through the tower, he's now somewhere else. Somewhere else.
Wow. I have to admit, there's a small portion of me that is thinking, "Wow, I would like to experience that," but it's a small portion. But only if someone can guarantee you'll be safe, you know.
Yeah, and come back.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. Okay. The roof was surrounded with a sort of a metal cage of bars that were presumably intended to prevent anyone falling or jumping off the tower. I heard some thunder and saw electricity arc between some of the bars. Not a blinding lightning strike, just how do you pronounce this? Just arcing? How do you pronounce this?
It's arcing.
Okay, yeah. I decided that the tower was imminently going to be struck and descended as quickly as I could. Okay, so not just that he is witnessing another atmosphere and another dimension, but he feels threatened that these lightning strikes as if someone almost with a mind behind this is orchestrating this. He feels threatened, like you're not. Basically, what I'm receiving is that he felt like I'm not welcome here. I should go. This thing is getting closer to me. I don't like these lightning strikes and this thunder. At the bottom, I was surprised to find the weather was again sunny with a clear sky. Man, this guy seriously found a portal, and it's working both ways. So he was able to safely came back. My girlfriend could tell I was shaken, and I was amazed when I told that maybe there had been lightning. The weather hadn't changed at all whilst I had been up the tower and had remained sunny, and it had remained sunny and clear. I'm very much a skeptic when it comes to paranormal. Okay, I like these details. So he's not prone to these things. I'm not religious. Okay, so he has, no reason why, no seeming reason why to, invents things that he doesn't believe in. And I had no other weird experiences like this one. In short, I'm not your stereotypical spooky things happen to me kind of a person. And yet I have no explanation for this. I've tried since then to figure out which tower it was. I spent a couple of summers traveling around Southern Europe and climbed a lot of old towers. So I'm fairly sure it was Tor Grossa in San Gimignano. I don't know how to pronounce this Italian town. It doesn't have a cage around the top, but there's a metal cage around the bells, and that must be what I remember. Wow, this
Or,
is a
or
fascinating story. I just wish he gave more details.
yeah, or you got to the top of the tower and you were in a different tower altogether. I mean, portals work in weird ways.
You
And
know, in all these stories, I know all of us wish like, hey, why didn't you record? Why didn't you take a photo? But I think if you were in their shoes, like with that reptilian or anything like this, that's the or like cancer flying in front of you and dropping down. That's the last thing you were like, hey spirit, or hey monster, or like hey whoever you are, give me a second until you get my phone,
yeah,
turn it on, activate, and okay, now you can go on. Like
yeah,
that's the last thing that will go your mind through your mind. I mean, I understand our desire that there's some you know documented evidence of this, and there's not. But I found this story so fascinating because I like those medieval things. I like towers, castles, swords, all of those things, and I love Italy. And it's my desire one day to go see a number of castles in Europe. Um, if I were him, I may be tempted years after this event to go back
yeah,
and do the same, but maybe bring friends now that will be willing to go with you on the top of the tower.
yeah,
Um, so I don't know. It's a fascinating story. It's not creepy. It's not scary. Well, except that little bit thing that like he saw at the gate, like he
yeah,
saw lightning that was like unnatural lightning. It's not a lightning that you see in the sky and then eventually goes away. He felt almost threatened, like maybe you're not supposed to be here. Now I have a question, like what was on the top of the tower? I'm imagining Gandalf and Saruman like almost having a duel on one of these top of the like towers. Like what was there? When was this? What was this? Like I wish he gleamed a little bit over and saw maybe the world that was there. Maybe if there were like different type of animals, how was the atmosphere? If he was able to see something in the distance, like I don't know, I would be intrigued. Of
yeah.
course, if you feel safe.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that the point, if I had to identify in the story, a point at which he crossed from our realm into another one would have been climbing the ladder and opening that trap door. Because he said that's when he first felt like there was this foreboding, and then he looked and he's like, "Oh no!" And so he kind of slunk out of the where the trap door was, uh, and so I'm assuming that's when he felt like, "Okay, I'm in a place where I don't belong."
Yeah. Do you want to read the next story? That can be the last story for tonight. It's a short one, and then we can be done.
About 10 years ago, I had an almost year-long battle with sleep paralysis. I'd wake up every night and just see anywhere from 1 to 6 shadow people surrounding my bed, just looking at me, every single night. All I could feel was just absolute dread, and there was no way out. Auditory hallucinations can also happen during, and I'd been awakened by a deep, almost multi-tonal sounding voice saying hatred, with increasing volume ramping all the way up to a scream right in my ear. They were even showing up in my dreams. Hold on. Okay, they were even showing up in my dreams, and I remember sitting in my living room in dream, and our Bose speaker system started cycling through radio stations super quickly until I could start to hear the voice come through it, only for it to say, "I'm coming," and then loud footsteps running up my stairs and a shadow bursting through the door. It was just all so elaborate and messed up that I was starting to think I was going insane. Once I moved out, it finally stopped, but I still think about it a lot. Man, uh, those sleep paralysis. I don't know if you've ever suffered from that. I went through
I had a few in the past. Yeah.
yeah, when I was younger, I suffered through it a lot. Enough that I think, like most people, when you're in that, your go-to is wiggle your finger until you can get your whole arm and body to move. And so when I would go into it, I would just wiggle my finger. But yeah, I've had times where I've woke up face down in a pillow, not able to breathe. And interesting. I don't want to jinx myself at all, but since I gave my life to Christ, I haven't had a single sleep paralysis episode, and I used to have them quite frequently.
For me, it was the opposite. Once when I came to Christ, very soon I experienced one back home in Europe. And then I don't know if I had another one in that house. My sister had them, and she's an atheist.
Mm,
But she told me only after I told her. She said, I had the same thing long ago, but she didn't want to tell me. Or maybe
mm,
she did, but I was a kid. I don't remember. And then I had in America one or two that were not as scary as the first time. The first time I couldn't move my body, I couldn't talk. The only thing I could do was blink. I wanted to call my dad. I
mm-hmm.
was so scared, and I was a new believer, so I thought and understood like this is a spiritual attack. And
Yeah.
I cannot say I saw something, but do you see like in this story, uh, the person was going through this visitation by these shadowy entities, these shadowy beings every night.
Mm,
So shadowy entities observing the person, sleeping paralysis, and keeping here in your own head the word hatred.
yeah.
So you're being hated. Why? Maybe because you're made in the image of God and they're not. Maybe because God loves you and there is a way of salvation provided to you by the blood of Jesus, and there's
Mm,
no way of repentance and salvation for them. We can only speculate. But these things, I've heard and read so many similar stories where these shadowy entities would follow people, attack them, having nightmares. Even some of them, I don't know if we'll read one of the stories in the next episode that you and I'll cover. Sometimes these entities can manifest and it actually grab the person who is sleeping, and the person will suddenly wake up, and it wouldn't be in their dream. They were like, something cold touched me. I felt it. That's why I woke up. It wasn't a dream. So there's something very scary and very real in these dark entities.
I've heard of stories where somebody is touched, like grabbed, and they wake up and there are fingerprints on their arm.
Yeah, and I just sneak back into the story. Uh, the person also heard the not just hatred, but it also heard the word "I'm coming." The words "I'm coming."
Yes.
Dude, this is like I would feel like as if this is I don't know if I can sell it a premonition or word of knowledge given by the demonic entities, but as if almost these demonic entities, the shadow people, were like just there observing because they're just like scouts, almost like if they're scouts. But this person, this entity that is saying "I'm coming" is almost like it's like the demonic general or some warlord, something like that. These are just minions, the shadow people. But now the big boss is coming. Why? To keep torturing this poor human being.
Yes.
Um, that's how it sounds like. Oh, again, it brings me to Stranger Things. I
Yeah.
don't know if you saw the last episode when the big boss is about to come. So all the scary things that were happening before that, they're just introduction to the big one, the main one coming. And when it comes, like you can run, but you can't hide unless you have Christ on your side. There's literally no cure, no medicine, no weapon that can work against a warlord general that is not your regular demonic entity, right?
Yeah. Because no matter what they can do to us, no matter how terrified we may be of them, that doesn't touch the fear and the dread that they feel for Christ. Because the things that we're afraid of are afraid of Him. And so while we're in Christ, we have protection, we have safety, and we can remind them, you're doomed. We already know the end. He has told us the end from the beginning.
You're toasted, buddy. Shaun, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. I know that we'll be preparing one more episode for the guests. I just want to, from everything that we've been reading tonight, I just want to say that first, demonic entities are real. Fear is real, and you don't have to be ashamed if you're going through some of these unfortunate demonic manifestations and experiences in your life. And number three, if this is happening to you, If you're in Christ, use your authority in Jesus, pray against these things, and you can share this with your brothers and sisters in faith. But if you're not and you're watching this, maybe on the day this is broadcasted or in the future, doesn't matter, please know that God loves you and that he has provided a way out from you, not just from demonic entities, but also from your sin, so that you can be reconciled and have peace to God through the blood of Jesus, because he loves you. He has paid for your debt, for your sins, and that you're always welcome to come back home.
And
uh
reach out to
concluding
us.
thoughts.
Reach out to us in the comments if you're going through something like this. We will pray for you.
Amen. That's a very good suggestion. Yes. That being said, guys, I hope you stay with us. I hope you subscribe. Share these videos. May be a blessing to you. Again, we're doing this because we're very curious. We want to spread the gospel, but we also want to enjoy these stories and just have fun while we're doing this. We have no profit. Our interest is, to reach out to you and see what changes can happen to all of us, and how we can benefit from combining the gospel and using these stories, and what can unfold from all of this. That being said, Shaun, thank you for tonight. God bless you. God bless all of you watching this. Yeah, please also keep commenting, because that helps us to know if one of these stories and episodes are reaching out to you. That's a big blessing and reward to all of us. Thank you. God bless.